In this episode, we talked to SAW's Chief Operations Officer, Lori Cooper, to find out how SAW is working to safely reopen its adult day service facilities post COVID. So stay tuned right after this. You're listening to SAW Talks, the go to podcast for issues concerning Northeast Ohio's community of adults with developmental disabilities. Hi, and welcome to another edition of SAW Talks. I'm Kathy Zip with SAW's marketing team. And while we've been speaking with SAW's CEO, Judy Carey, today we get to meet another team member. We have SAW's Chief Operations Officer, Lori Cooper. So, Lori, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
So, in past episodes, we talked about how SAW has been impacted by the pandemic. They've had to close 6 adult day centers, but good news is around the corner as SAW is working to start reopening. So we're going to hear a little bit more from Lori on that. But first, let's learn a little bit more about her. So, Lori, how did you get into this line of work and then to SAW?
Well, it really was by accident, where some people are very directed in what they want to do when they graduate. I was not. And when I was looking for a job, I had volunteered in college working with an individual with disabilities, taking her swimming. And I really enjoyed that. So I saw an ad for direct service provider at a group home and thought, well, I could do that. I never really thought of it as a career move, just something that I thought I was good at and liked doing. But I thought you just kind of do that because it's a good thing to do. And so I started that, and I have been working in the field ever since. I've met amazing people that have enriched my life and taught me so much. I had a great mentor and made a lot of friends. Even by accident, I can't imagine ever having done anything differently. I've been doing it for over 30 years now, and I feel very connected to what I do and the people I do it with. I became familiar with SAW after I left residential services. I started working with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, running their Rocky River Adult Activity Center. And I was there for about 10 years when the center, Cuyahoga County Board, was getting out of providing direct service. And so SAW was taking over all of the adult activity centers. I decided to apply for this position because I really was committed to the individuals that I was working with and the rest of the people that the board was serving, and thought that I could help in developing the program, making sure it continued to be quality services, and really developing something even more special that we could provide services to people coming out of school and maybe do some new things. So I was very excited to move over and continue my work with SAW.
That's so wonderful. I can relate. I know that I was unsure when I went to school as well what I wanted to do. And sometimes it just takes that one experience to kind of say, hey, this I feel like is my calling and I can do this. So that's wonderful how you kind of got into the line of work and then how you've evolved with SAW as well. So let's dive a little bit more into that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role at SAW and your responsibilities? What do you do as Chief Operations Officer?
I was actually only in that position for a couple of months before we left for this pandemic. So the role was kind of evolving, but I'm responsible for overseeing the operations of the 6 adult activity centers and our supported employment program. With that, that includes new business growth, admissions of individuals, finances, personnel, hiring, training. I think that our direct service providers are the key component of our success. So that hiring component and that development of their skills and getting them to be passionate and see, that maybe this is their calling, like you said. They are the people that directly impact the individual's day and their ability to obtain what they want out of services. So I feel like they're the most important driving force of what we do. I've been extremely lucky in hiring of very experienced staff who have brought a wealth of knowledge with them and already established relationships in a lot of cases with the individuals and their families. So that's been very beneficial to get SAW working in the right direction right off the bat. We didn't have to learn people and do all of that in addition to starting our program. So that's been very helpful. but also we've brought on some new staff, some younger staff, and some people with not as much experience. But that's been a great addition to our team because they bring fresh ideas and challenge us to do things differently, look at things differently, help people develop services that we may not have offered before. We're getting younger individuals coming out of school. With that, I think you need fresh ideas and to see things differently on what they might want out of services versus our individuals who have been with us for 20, 30 years. Since values those direct service providers, I think we offer a little higher pay and good health benefits package. Saw pays for certification training for medication pass and CPR and first aid. So people can take those skills with them if they move on in their career. I think it's a very good starting point for people. It's a very good ending point for people. So I think we have staff that are very committed and stay long term, which is something that's not in the job market. I think people switch jobs a lot. And with working with individuals, relationships are important. So we try to keep our good staff with us.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I think that's really something that kind of differentiates Saw, and some of the experience or even new ideas. I know that those are some of the things that make Saw stand out, because you even look for that higher level of medical care because you have nurses on staff at each location as well. Is it correct?
We do. We have nurses that oversee the medical components of individuals, their needs while they're at our site, and that conversation and communication with families and their team members or the group home that they live with. It's important to have that continuity of care between their residential place and where they're going during the day. So our nurses are very important in that carryover.
The high quality medical care, and then the opportunity for workers as well. I think it definitely sets Saw apart. So what do you like most about your job?
Definitely working with the individuals. The direct service is what got me passionate about this work and establishing relationships with people. And I feel like in my job, I'm able to do that with everyone from my managers to the individuals to their families. So I'm still able to keep that connection to what draws me to this field and not be all administrative, but I'm able to be creative and flexible. And I think when you work with people, their families, their loved one team members, you constantly change your approach because just like us, everybody's different what they respond to. I think you have different friends that meet different needs. Some friends meet all your needs. They celebrate your successes with you and help you through bad times or lift you up, help you achieve your goals. Some friends tell you the truth when others won't. So you try to establish those relationships where people trust you and know that you have their best interest at heart. And I like that that's constantly changing depending on who you're working with and what they need, where they want to go, what they want to see, what they want from you. I feel like figuring that out and talking to people, whether it's my team members or the individuals we work with or their families, that's one of the best things about the job. It's always changing, it's always different, and it's easy to be creative and say, hey, we've never done that before, but if that's what you want, let me look into it and figure it out. There's not constraints in that. So I like that part of it. I like to think outside that box and figure out how to get where we want to go.
That really is neat how you can be so front facing with the individuals and then kind of take those ideas and their families, and they kind of take those ideas up, to your board and other executive team members, so that you're really getting that feedback and being able to think outside the box and make improvements that really matter to your individuals and their families. That's really cool. Now, what hasn't been so exciting, I know, is having to be closed for the last few months, and it's been challenging. I know, even though I think you guys have done a great job of trying to stay connected with the individuals and their families. But I know that you are looking to reopen, and I know that that's not a decision that Saw has made alone. So can you kind of talk about what conditions or what parties need to be kind of you're working with to decide when you can reopen? It's not completely just up to Saw, correct?
Sure. No, it's not. It's been one that's definitely been very slow, and in some ways that's good. I know everybody knows it's challenging all around the world. We've been constantly talking about how and when to reopen with our executive team since we closed, but first we were under the stay-at-home order with everybody else in Ohio, and then we were the last phase of the state's reopening plan. We fell into that category with the nursing homes because we serve a vulnerable population who may have medical issues that make them more compromised, and the impact of the virus could be a lot worse for them. So we were in the very last stage of that. Once we got approval from the state that that phase was going into effect and we could reopen, the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities gave us direction on how and when we could open. So once we got the approval from them, they gave us guidelines on what our facility should look like, mostly center based because of airflow and contact with people and the amount of people we have in a building. Those are all the same considerations they were giving other businesses and things, but our guidelines were a little stricter. So we looked at that, made our decisions based on, what they told us, and also information from the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health and OSHA, because we do have to follow some industrial guidelines. So all of those things came into play on how and when we would reopen. And of course, safety for individuals and our staff was our biggest consideration. So we wanted to make sure when we did do it that we did it right and did the best we could to ensure everyone's health and safety.
Right. So it's really controlled and targeted and well thought out reopening process that, involves a lot of different factors. What does the reopening process look like right now? I know things may still be evolving. How do you see how and when do you see it working?
Well, you're right, Kathy. Things are always evolving. And I think, given the state of how everything is with the pandemic and everything everywhere is constantly evolving, and we're constantly updating our process and how things work based on the news and what's going on, what our families and individuals want, how our staffing looks. So, where we are right now in the process is we took two sites, our Euclid Adult Activity Center and our Parma Adult Activity Center, and decided to start there. So that would give us one east side location and one west side location to do a very small opening. Part of our guidelines from the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities was certain things we had to meet. It had to be groups of 10 or less. They had to have their own space with walls. They had to have their own staffing so that the footprint of who was engaged with them during their day was less, so that they had less exposure opportunities. We dedicated a bathroom to each group and an exit and entrance. So we went into those two sites and developed that plan of how many groups could we really get into those buildings safely based on those parameters. And Euclid and Parma, we decided 40 individuals was the max. We felt comfortable at this point with the square footage and the walls and the bathroom situation, entrances and exits. And so we developed our plan, sent it to the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they did a virtual walkthrough to look at the space, look at what we had provided them, and they gave us approval to go ahead and do that. Our next step was to talk to the individuals and the families that wanted to come back, see how many that was, and then determine how many people we were going to serve in that first part. In the meantime, we also had group employment starting to go back based on what community settings were opening up. We have a grounds maintenance crew at Warrensville Developmental Center, and they had been on residential lockdown where they weren't having anybody off grounds coming. So we started back there with our grounds crew, and they've been very happy that we're back, and they do a great job of cutting the grass, and our team's extraordinary out there. So they were happy to see us back and get their grounds in order. And that was a little bit easier to do because it's outside, it's a small crew. They are so distanced, when somebody's on the riding mower, somebody's doing the blowing off of things, and somebody else is trimming. So it's easy to space out and do those things. We're also developing our plans for the other 4 adult activity centers and for our cleaning crews and Just a Bucks and other community partners to get back to work. So it's kind of a lot of moving pieces all at the same time, but very small and slow and controlled in each setting. They're just all at different phases right now.
Right, that is a lot of moving parts and different considerations because you have the 6, day facilities and then the 2 Just a Buck stores, correct?
Correct.
So that's a lot. It's a lot of different considerations and locations to be looking at.
It is. And we really wanted to make sure when we go back that our staff have all the tools they need. We've been ordering PPE. I'm sure people see on the news where, people can't get the correct PPE and can't and are short on supplies and stuff. So we wanted to make sure we had everything to protect the staff and individuals before we started back up, and also to do some visual things in the building so that individuals know where they go and where their bathroom is. Order sanitation supplies, whether it's bleach wipes or cleaning supplies. So all that stuff we have in stock, and make sure we're ready to go, and that staff are trained on how to use it and how to appropriately sanitize the area, keep people safe. So
Wonderful. So I know you also mentioned, part of the process is working with the families and seeing, if the individuals do want to come back, or, if it's a good idea for them or when they may be ready to. So can you talk about those conversations a little bit, like how you go about talking to the families about, if the individual will be able to come back and how you can provide for them, like what kind of things are you looking at, when it comes to their health and keeping them safe, and then what kind of questions are families asking or concerns they have.
it's very different for everyone. As you can imagine, everyone's needs are very different. Everyone has a different living situation. Some individuals live with their families and don't have a lot of other people then in their social circle that they're able to get together with right now. So their social life is really at our adult activity centers or their work. They don't have a lot of other families in some cases. They don't have direct supports services. We're really prioritizing those individuals that don't get other supports and maybe are even more secluded than some people who have a wider range of opportunities, even though they're limited. But we want to make sure that they don't have a lot of the health and safety risks that put them more at jeopardy for having terrible outcome should they be exposed to the virus. So if they do have a support administrator with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, they do a health and safety risk assessment with the individual as to what their risk level is, or what their risk level for the people they live with are. Some people live with medically compromised other people. Some live with family members that are elderly and may have their own health issues. So it really looks at their environment at home and them personally. And then if they come out at a lower risk, or the team just decides this is the better option for them, they need to get out, they need the structure and support and the help, the team reviews that, and then we decide if we're able to provide them the services that they want during this time. Unfortunately, we have to make some decisions on, because we're serving such a small proportion of the individuals we were serving first, we have to look at who can gain the most from coming back, and who we can provide services to safely right off the bat. So we work with the families. They find transportation to us. We don't provide transportation at this point. The questions and concerns come mostly from, what are we doing to ready our sites? What kind of things are in place to keep them safe? What if their family member can't wear a mask because they don't tolerate it or they have a sensitivity to it? Will they still be able to come? Will outside people be allowed in our buildings? Will we go out into the community? What their exposure will be when they come to us, and what our procedure is if staff find out they're positive if they come into contact with somebody who had a positive test, what our procedure would be in our communication. So we've tried to lay that out step by step and give them as much information as we can, provide newsletters and letters and talking to people directly, answering phone calls, whatever way we can get information out to people. Not everybody's able to receive electronic information, so we're sending things through the mail, making phone calls, just making sure we try to, keep in contact with people and let them know what's going on, because we are just at the beginning of that and we haven't fully gotten our enrollment for each site yet. So we're still talking to people about coming back. We've committed to serving the individuals that we can, that were already enrolled with us. But if we don't have enough individuals that are comfortable in coming back right now that are enrolled with us, we will start looking at individuals that may have been putting in requests to come to SAW prior to this happening, because we have had some people that wanted to start with us and then we left. So if we are looking, for more people, we'll reach out to them and start the process with them.
Right. So kind of giving your individuals who were attending, the opportunity to come back right away, and then seeing who else you can accommodate. But I think that's so important that you touched on the open communication and trying to reach people in various ways. I mean, you're doing print to their homes, and calling, and the newsletters, and we're doing these podcasts, just trying to keep people as informed as possible, and keeping those communication lines open. I know that there are, just you're limited on how many people you can bring in. What about staff? How is SAW planning to bring staff members back, and then making sure that they're staying safe as well?
Our staff that are coming back will come back prior to the individual starting back up. So staff in the adult activity centers will come back a week before the individuals return. And that way we can do training with them on, because it's pretty much relearning a lot of their job, where they'll be in the building, which bathroom they use, what that looks like, how they sanitize between people. People can't share materials. And so, what that looks like, making sure their area has enough stuff to do, that it's very interactive and engaging, so that people just don't come and sit in a room when they get there. We want to make sure we have the activities planned and the schedule planned, opportunities to get outside and let people have a break from their mask with social distancing and breathing some fresh air and taking a walk, getting some exercise outside of their area assigned to them in the building. During that, staff they'll learn how to utilize the PPE correctly. They'll find out our new cleaning materials, how to utilize those correctly, when to use what PPE, depending on what direct service they're providing to the individual. So it's a week long of intense training. We are not able to bring all our staff back at this point because we're bringing back such a small number of individuals. So some staff will stay out, some will come back. We're hoping when we get back in our buildings that we can look at more creative ways to maybe pick people up at home and take them out for a community activity, meet up with a few of their friends in a safe manner, and provide some services outside the center, or do something creative that helps that individual gain a little more social support, get out of the house a little bit and connect with their friends in a safe manner, but maybe not in within the walls of that site. So that would provide an opportunity to bring a few more staff back as guidelines change, update our plans in the centers, look for new partners outside, and keep adding on until hopefully we get back to full capacity and all our staff back at work.
Right. Yeah. The retraining, is definitely a process, and but it seems like you're really focused on making sure that everybody's staying safe, and then being able to cater to the individuals that aren't necessarily comfortable coming back into the centers, but still being able to serve them, and making sure that they're getting out of the house and socializing too. Very very wonderful way to respond to some of the things that the individuals and their families are looking for, some of the opportunities. So that's wonderful. And then I know that you mentioned group employment programs, and some of them, you said some of them are coming back as the companies reopen or allow, their own workers back. But so companies that are maybe interested in partnering with SAW for an employment program, that will be something that they may just have to wait a little bit on in the future, or is that something that they can inquire about now?
That is something they can inquire about now. I think SAW has such a great relationship with our community partners. I would love to plug them all here for a minute. But we've worked with churches and schools and local businesses, and we've developed our own businesses like in Just a Bucks. We currently work with L'Oreal. We have a group that does packaging at their distribution center. ODOT has cleaning crews. We have cleaning crews with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities in their buildings. I talked about the grounds maintenance at Warrensville Developmental Center and sorting materials at Cintas. We do production at PCC Mentor, and then we have our Just a Bucks. And all of our community partners talk about how our individuals are very detail oriented. They do great work, and they're all welcoming us back, which is phenomenal given the state of the economy and how businesses are suffering right now, that people have stayed committed to us even though we had to close down with everybody else, and are working with us on how to come back in a safe manner in those sites, because a lot of our individuals do rely on that financial input into their home. So it's very important to them and their growth. And so we're happy to be going back to those places, even if it's a little slower, depending on, what they have going on. But we are working with all of them to get back. We also have partners within our adult activity centers so that we can do vocational training. NVent, which used to be Erico, is a great customer of ours. They give us work to do in the buildings, and that provides training to the individuals. That's assembly and packaging, Test Oil, Care Fusion, Progressive Metals, Cleveland Marathon. We pack assembly kits for them. Johnsonite, Faber-Castell, packaging, art and school supplies. So all of those companies, give us work to do at the sites. People are able to make a paycheck and to learn work skills so that they can move on to supported employment or competitive employment. And we're working with them to get those back in the center too, and they've stayed committed. So it's a very important part of what we do for the individuals. I'm just very thankful that we're able to get all that back after, what's been happening with the economy. So
Right, that's such a good point, that even these individuals with developmental disabilities, like they still are in a situation where they're impacted by the economic downturn, and they need to be making money too. And so it's something I think a lot of people don't think about. What a testament to the value of SAWS workers to these companies, the fact that they're even though some of them may be struggling, they want those workers back. That's how valuable they are to their businesses. So that's just really a wonderful testament to your employment program. So that's really wonderful. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had here. So thank you so much, Lori. We appreciate you being on the podcast, and we would love to have you back. And I know that you and everyone at SAW is working hard to keep everything safe, but you're looking forward to reconnecting with your individuals too.
I am definitely, and we'll try to keep, even for those individuals, like I had said before, keep communication open and try to provide them services the best way we can, even if they're not in our first phase of coming back.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we hope that you'll join us next time. But you can continue to learn more about SAW by visiting sawinc.org and following SAW on Facebook and LinkedIn. And as Lori said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Don't wait if you're looking for a partnership as an employer member, or maybe somebody who is looking to attend SAW, there may be, an opportunity for you. So feel free to reach out to SAW, and please leave a comment or question if you like what you hear on this podcast, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to SAW Talks. Stay up to date with our latest episodes by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Like what you hear? Share this episode and leave us feedback. We look forward to hearing from you.